Previously on Lost.
Remember the hatch that Locke and Boone uncovered in the jungle? Boone and Locke are trying to figure out how to open the hatch. Boone's like, what do we do? He's like, well, that's why I've been sitting out here. This video is Lost Part 18. It is an episode about Locke, and it is the episode entitled Deus Ex Machina. At the very beginning of the episode, Locke is out in the jungle with Boone, of course, because, hello, that's what they do. So they're still trying to figure out how to open the hatch. And Boone is saying stuff like, we've been out here for 2 weeks, what the hell do we do? They build something called a trebuchet, and I don't really know how one's supposed to look. So bear with me. But it's like this really tall, like, catapult-looking thing. And they have like a piece of metal or something like that tied to the end. And what happens when they release this end swings down this way, and it's supposed to break the glass that's in the little window on the hatch. Well, it falls, and it doesn't break the glass. It hit the glass, and then it like busted apart into like a million pieces, even over here where it was all set up and everything like that. And somehow, like a piece of shrapnel, I don't know if it was from the wood or the metal part of the thing, like stuck in John's leg. So he has like this huge piece of like something sticking out of his leg, and Boone's like, John, you have something in your leg. And Locke doesn't even feel it, so he goes and he pulls it out, and he's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I am. In the flashback, and by the way, I'm going to give you the entire flashback. John is at work. I think it's like a Costco or something like that. And so it's the job that he had before he was at the box company. And he has hair. He meets this woman that claims to be his mother. And then they go out to try and get to know one another. And basically she tells him, oh, John, you were immaculately conceived. You don't have a father, because he's asking about his father. So he has a private investigator, who knows who it was, track down all the information he could about his parent. The mother is got schizophrenia and has been hospitalized for it a couple of times. And then the other report he has is on his father. And he's like, if you really want it, I'll give it to you. Well, he finds out who his father is. It's someone named Anderson Cooper. And he goes to Anderson Cooper's house. It's much bigger than that. And gets to know his father. And he's like, I didn't even know about you. She told me that she didn't even have the baby, and when I found out that you were actually existed, she gave you up for adoption. They get to know one another really well, and go out hunting together to shoot birds and stuff, and blah, 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 out in, like, fields and crap. Well, Locke comes to find out that his father is actually on dialysis, and that his kidney is failing. And his father's like, oh, don't worry about it, as long as we get to spend this time that we have together. Locke decides, supposedly, on his own accord, to donate one of his kidneys to his dad. They go to the hospital, they have the transplant, and when Locke wakes up, the dad is missing. The mother comes into the hospital room, and she's like, it was all his plan. He basically said it had to be your idea. So basically, Locke's father, I didn't draw his hair on him all this time. Oh well. Tricked him into giving him one of his kidneys. And at the end of all the flashbacks, he was really upset. Back to the island. Down on the beach, Michael and Jen are building the raft deal, whatever. And remember, Sawyer's going to go on the raft with them. So he's been real close by this whole time. And he's been complaining of headaches. Kate notices, she goes and tells Jack. Jack comes along and offers his services as a doctor. He's like, so I hear you have headaches. He's like, hey, doc, get bent. He doesn't really want his help, and so Jack starts to walk away. Well, Kate finally does take him to go see Jack. He examines him and determines that he needs glasses. They put a pair of goofy-looking, like, glasses. They had to take 2 different pairs to get the right, I guess, prescription for him. And when Hurley sees it, he walks by. He's like, dude, looks like someone like totally steamrolled Harry Potter. And Kate laughs. She's like, oh, Hurley, that's so funny. This is a top view looking down. He's asleep. And he has this dream that he and Boone are out in the jungle. And while they were doing whatever it is that they do out in the jungle, bad boys, he dreams that he sees a really small plane crash on the island. So I think it has like a propeller in the front. So he wakes up and he goes and gets Boone, and he's like, there's, something we've got to find on this island. And Boone's like, what is it? He's like, it's a plane. So they go trekking off into the jungle, and Locke tells him about the dream there. He saw a plane crash and convinces Boone that he should go with him. At first, Boone was really hesitant. He's like, look, I've let you do a lot of strange things to me out here in the jungle, but trekking off to find another crashed plane is just crazy, right? Well, meanwhile, John's legs get increasingly worse, and it's not just the wound, even though he says that it's the wound from the shrapnel that was in his leg that was like right there. So eventually, he's all like down on the ground. He's like, oh, John, you've got to get up. So John's on the ground. He's like, just help me up, son. Now, if that isn't a daddy-son-boy quasi-relationship affirmation, I don't know what is. God. Boone's been helping Locke to walk, and then eventually he collapsed. And then he, looks up because, Boone's, trying to help him up again. So way up on top of this cliff and kind of stuck in, the trees and the overgrowth of the jungle and stuff like that is this plane that John saw in his dream. Locke believes that they were meant to find the plane and that somehow it was going to lead them to some way to open the hatch. So because Locke's legs are really weak, he has Boone climb all the way the frick up and get into the plane. This is supposed to be the interior of the plane when Boone's in there. And he finds these little, this is going to be really, really bad. Because I really forget what one's supposed to look like. He finds these little, Virgin Mary statues inside, and Charlie should be really happy about this, are little bundles of heroin in little plastic baggies. And there's, a good 4 or 5 cratefuls of these things inside. So you find out that the plane was a drug smuggling plane. Anyway, this was in the back of the plane. So then he goes to the front of the plane, and he finds the radio equipment that's on board, and it's still working, and he tries to put out a distress call. But as he's in there, the plane starts to, drop, tip forward. And he's on the radio saying, Mayday, Mayday, we're the survivors of Flight 8115. And just before this next part happens, you hear the voice on the radio say, we're the survivors of Flight 815. And then that's when the plane goes down. Okay, so this is supposed to be the plane flipped upside down because it hit, face first, and then the tail flipped back this way. Anyway, here's the propeller right here. Here's the big cliff that it's at the base of. Locke is like, oh my god, Boone's in there, and he's my playmate, I better go make sure that he's okay. So he goes and looks inside the plane, gets Boone out. He comes walking back into, remember Jack's favorite place right now is the caves, and he's got Boone on his shoulders, and he's all bloody and gross and whatever, and, Jack's like, what happened? And he says, well, we were out hunting, and he fell off a cliff, which is entirely false. He did fall off a cliff. He just didn't say that he was in a plane. And so they set him down, and Jack starts to work on him. And he tells Kate to go get him, rags and water and all this stuff because he's going to have to do all this stuff because that Boone's really, really bad off. And he says, I need to know exactly what happened. Well, he turns around and looks, and John is gone. The very last scene, it's later that night, and out in the middle of the jungle, John is banging on the impenetrable glass that's in the hatch and saying, I did everything you wanted me to do. Why did you do this to me? Basically saying, poor Boone is all hurt, and now he doesn't have anyone to play with out in the jungle. Maybe Charlie, but maybe not. All of a sudden, there's this light that comes on out of the glass window in the hatch.